H for Hustle podcast. Welcome back. We have another illustrious guest. Today we have Ericka Williams of the Classy Climb. Ericka, welcome to the show.
What's up? How you guys doing today?
Good. So, Ericka, if we were to meet at like I guess we would have to say a virtual dinner party now, right?
No, I'm having. If you're in Texas, we can meet in person.
If we were met together, what would you? I would say, hey, what do you do for a living? What would you tell somebody?
The easiest way I tell people is, hey, I'm a YouTuber who manages $1.9 million in assets.
Got you. Okay, that's a great way of kind of condensing it all. So let's go back. Let's start from the beginning. I know you didn't start off as a YouTuber. Let's go back. What's your background? Where are you from?
So, military kid, lived in Alaska for many years.
What? What part? Juneau?
I lived in the first base, the base that's in near Kodiak.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. And then my parents are like, oh, we're going to get out the military. They get out for 1 year. We live in Kodiak Island, which you have to ferry to every day if you want to leave or go. Excuse me. And Kodiak Island, we're like only one of 3 brown families there. It was quite hilarious. After a year, my parents were like, all right, we're going to get back in the military. And so on that journey of just always being the new kid, always kind of having to make friends, talk to people, be flexible, you learn a lot about yourself and, resiliency, right?
Yeah.
When I got back to North Carolina, my first job was at my cousin's dollar store. Okay. So my cousin, this is before you had like the franchise, before all that. This is like him having a catalog from China, order the parts, they ship it over in boxes, and he assembled his store.
Really?
And this is like way back. This is when you could order all kind of stuff off catalog books, maybe this thick. And it just was a mindset shift. It was like, you can do anything.
Really? So working in that store
can order parts from China. They come here in a box and we just unload it. Anything's possible. You can just do anything, right?
Gotcha.
Because at the end of the day, like grandpa had a juke joint and a farm. We just have a very unique history in the Carolinas.
Got you. So you were around an entrepreneur family, or that was just your cousin that was that entrepreneur?
So my family was security focused, but entrepreneurial. Now, how do I say that, right? I think the best way to explain it is in the 80s happened, farming, loans, all this bust kind of happened. Everybody in the house went out and got something secure, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a bunch of military folks, police officers, nurses, teachers, secure.
Yeah.
Security, right? But they all were buying real estate for cheap, buying trailers for cheap, buying land around the corner for cheap, just like little things that you're like, there's entrepreneurial things there. And it's funny that when I deviate from the family plan of security and go full entrepreneurship, they're like, what are you doing?
And you're like, you guys have been dabbling for years. Why can't I go full on?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's one of those things of like, but I think that when honestly, when trauma happens or devastating things, a whole family's mind can shift.
Mm-hmm.
Like their whole mindset is like security. Like if you just go to military for 4 years, you can have a car, VA loan, you can have all this.
Yeah.
And then you can go do whatever you want.
Gotcha.
Right? It's like security focused.
So when did you deviate from that security? Because you see your cousin, you're working there. In your mind, what were you planning on being when you grew up, quote unquote?
Man, the first thing that started deviating from that was all our family was going to NC State, engineers, and they were going to this other school. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Sorry, I have 3 broken phones in my office. I kid you not. They don't work. You can't change the screen. This is you can cut this, but anyway, this happens.
No problem.
So I apologize if this keeps happening. So when I immediately said, well, I'm not going to NC State, I'm going to go to East Carolina University. Well, ever since our aunt flunked out in the 80s, they're like, no one in this family will ever go back to East Carolina. And I'm like, really? I'm going. Hey, it's a party, right? So this school was on the Playboy Bunny list. And it said in the Playboy Bunny list 1 year that, hey, it's 8 women, 1 guy here.
Wow.
So I go that freshman year, like, man, it's a lot of girls here. Next year, kid you not, it's like every class was just swamped full of guys. And that just shows you the power of like this Playboy magazine, right? And how powerful it was. And I just started realizing every job I had, like I would try to be efficient or do something faster or
Hmm.
better. And they never liked that. They'd be like, no, just do it like I told you. Be like, nah, I want to do it this way. Right.
Yeah.
Or no, this is better or faster. And with every single job, I just realized like you are not meant to be in these jobs.
Really.
Like
So
even 2 weeks into a job, I'd be like, yeah, this is fun, but you're not meant to be here.
yeah, you just felt it within you, or it was just a lack of appreciation for what you were doing.
It was a combination of like just I hate talking about alpha, beta, all this other silly stuff, but I feel like there are some people in our society that 10% are like, nope, can't do this.
Yeah.
Out. Like
Yeah.
this system isn't for me out.
Yeah.
And every time I've tried to jump back into the matrix and like go to work and get careers, it's like everything I'm like, oh, I see that. I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like never could get into that system.
Yeah, I completely understand. My story is that I started a business, worked on this business for 10 years. Then I got
Mm-hmm.
into corporate America after all that. So I was never immersiated in the corporate life. And when I got there, I was like, I don't fit in here. I just felt it. I knew it in my bones. It just didn't feel right. I'd walk in there and just my stomach would feel bad. Like this is not a place for me.
Yeah.
So I know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you're talking about. And no matter even if you tried, it's just innately not you to fit into that establishment. Got you. So
And
that was that the moment you were in college and you figured it out from
oh
there,
yeah,
or?
every job, and like I worked at the Red Cross for a while, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I would go places and be action, and I was like, yo, maybe I could be an FBI agent. And my mom's like, you don't like structure. FBI is like the most
Structure,
structured.
yeah.
You're gonna have to follow all the rules. And it dawned on me. So then I used some of my inheritance money because unfortunately my grandma and my father died like 6 months of each other. And I started a coffee shop in North Carolina across from a historically black college, Federal State University. And all these kids would come in and be like, yo, you're young. What's up?
Yeah.
Like shocked, right? And it was a good experience because it kind of like it concreted that for me. So, but when they start tearing up the road, the construction over there, like me and 3 other businesses went under. So I
Mm-hmm.
closed that shop and I literally flipped a coin. And there's a whole story behind it, but I was engaged to be married 3 weeks before the wedding, called that bad boy. We're not going to do it. Long
Wow.
story there. And I say, you know what? If I stay in North Carolina, I will coast. I got all this family. They got rental properties. I can just stay there. I can live low and cheap and kind of do what I want, come and go as I please. I have to challenge myself at this point. I have to do it now or it will not happen. So I flipped a coin and I literally said one side of the coin was Nashville, Tennessee. The other side of the coin was Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And I flipped it and I got Austin. So I had friends, I called them up. They're like, yeah, we're in Killeen. It's totally so close. I get here, I'm like, Killeen's almost an hour from Austin. I'm not staying here, you guys. I'm out here. And I get to Austin and I promise you, like within 2 weeks of being there, I found this church, found this singles group of like 180 people. Every Friday we're two-stepping. Every Saturday we're tubing down the river. Every Sunday we're having dinners and conversation and just laughing it up. And
Yeah.
it was like the best 5 months in a row I could have. It was really awesome. And so I really believe like you have to, if something's telling you to move or pick up and go, or let's go to the next challenge, you have to listen, because if not, you totally miss out on where you're supposed to be.
I'm happy you said that, because most people would have said, hey, I'll stay where I'm comfortable, right? Like you said, I knew I would coast there, and innately in you went against what would be the most comfortable thing, and most people would focus on comfort. What do you think that was the reason why you made that change? Because most people would stay in comfort. You chose not to. What was the thing that said it's the best move to go somewhere else?
So I'm a total sci-fi nerd, like,
Okay.
Oh my God, sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
There's a movie called Dune from 1984. 1984 movies are just the best, okay? And so I'm watching it, and his father puts his hand on the shoulder of his son. He says, listen, because they're moving. And he says, son, there's something in us when we don't challenge ourselves, it sleeps. If we don't, it just stays dull, right? And the sleeper must awaken. Now, if anybody's watched this movie, they'll know what I'm talking about, but like, it's a great movie. It's classic. And when the kid finally like reaches his like, part in the movie, that's amazing. Like his father's died, things have happened. He's like, Father, the sleeper has awakened. And I promise you, whenever something good goes in my life, that movie pops in my head and I laugh because I realize there is something in us every time we move, every time we get a new job, we get a new relationship, whatever, it awakens. And it makes us go a little bit better, be a little bit better, adjust.
Yeah.
And I'm just a diehard believer that like this every time we have a recession, anything, people awaken to like, oh, I'm going to survive.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I can do these new things, these new skills, these new jobs. And every time, I kid you, without a doubt, every time I moved to a new city or I learned something new and there's new jobs I've never heard of, careers I've never heard of. And that pushed me to want to even do YouTube because I felt like so many people were living their little life in their little town and man, I could do more, but this is comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this girl bringing on some tech guys who came out of the military doing tech, right?
Yeah.
Or here's these people over here that's doing this kind of side job or that. But if no one ever exposes you to it, you don't know it exists.
Yeah.
You're sitting there just chilling.
Yeah. And so you don't want your sleeper to ever go to sleep. So you
no, I mean like, but you feel it. It's I tell people, if you keep thinking of something, you keep hitting something over and over again, it's meant to happen. It's like, it's a churning. I have had moments where I did something, like I was in a job and it was super comfortable for like, and then on the second year of that job, everything within me, every day I get up was like, no, this is not where you need to be.
Yeah.
You need to go and move it along. And I think probably to my family and friends, they're like, what are you doing? But to me, I knew inside wise, like I was like, oh, it was like something was like, hey,
you gotta go. That's something, King. You seem like you listen to yourself, or you have a very strong belief in a faith or something, because you're something that you listen to. Most people will get that feeling and then be like, no, they'll fight against it,
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting, because most people won't go with what that feeling is. I've learned to believe that whatever that guiding system is telling you, just follow it, because it usually is going to lead you to a good place. But most people don't. So that's kind of interesting. So let's get back to the story now. So you get back to Austin. No. I
know. I'm that kind of person. I'll do it.
We get back to Austin, and now you've found this group you're with for 5 months. What happens after that?
So the whole time every bit of Austin, as I was working in apartment management in the beginning, and in the afternoons I'd be delivering pizzas in 100-degree hell weather out here in Texas. And I would find little new neighborhoods, little new stuff. And I remember meeting this guy, talking to him. And he was like, real estate. I come back around 2 years later, meet that same guy again, describe all these neighborhoods. And he's like, how do you know this? I was delivering pizzas 2 years ago. I delivered to your house. Like, it was like, everything's a coincidence, right? And every little step I've taken, the information I got at that position helped me go to the next one. So I worked in apartment management as a billings manager. And there was a guy who was maybe 5 years older than me, and he was a goofball. But he was like a painting company, and he had got this contract with us. And we had told the company, say, listen, there's a bunch of apartments being leased out this summer.
Yeah. And
since we're changing the office colors, people are going to want their apartments painted. They're going to want their doors painted. They're not just going to settle for same old. And we could just hire a painter for $50,000 a year. It'll be great. And, you'll just give them benefits, and that guy will paint all day and all night. The company's like, oh, hush, girl, we're going to outsource like we've always done.
Yeah.
And that summer, instead of 100 people moving, because this is like a 500-unit apartment complex, 195 moved at the same time.
Wow.
And so the guy that we were outsourcing it to, who I thought was a dummy, literally made $300,000 off the apartment complex that year.
Wow.
And he never even showed up. He just would send 2 or 3 guys a day. 2 or 3 guys a day, and teams of 2 or 3 or 2 or 4, and they would be painting, and they would be knocking them out. And I remember doing the billing for it, and I called my friend one day and said, hey, we gotta go start as a painting company. This is a racket on a racket, right?
Yeah.
And for the next 2 and 3 years, that's literally, I was able to sit in my apartment, coast, make YouTube videos, and like take people's payments over the phone and chill. And even then I knew, okay, something stern. You got to do more. You got to be more. And it's just funny to me. It's very funny because.
So you got into the painting thing. That was exciting. You were making money, not doing much work. So do you stop working at the apartment complex, or do you?
Oh, for sure. sure,
Or
for
do you
sure.
plug yourself into that apartment complex now?
No, so at that, even when I was at the apartment complex, I gave away referrals. Like I'm a super happy person. There's a great book called Super Connectors. I
Yeah.
put myself in that category. I'm
Hmm.
always like, hey, you can go meet this person, that person. That year, I gave away like 70 to 75 referrals
Hmm.
to agents. Well, here in Texas, you get like the first month's rent. So on average, these people are renting $1,200 apartments.
Yeah.
So all I can see in my mind is I'm getting this little $50 gift card, and I gave you like $70,000, $80,000
Yeah.
off of these referrals.
So now you're like, hold on, I'm getting underpaid here.
So immediately I'm like, let me get my real estate license. So I get my real estate license, and I literally spend the next, between the YouTube, between the painting company, it was a beautiful summer. I'll just say it that way. It was beautiful, beautiful income.
Gotcha.
And what I realized in all that is, stuff will be right in front of your face. You just have to reach out. Reach out
Gotcha.
and touch it, reach out and connect to it, be open to it. A lot of times
Gotcha.
people are in a drone phase where they just show up to work every day, Monday through Friday. They just
Yeah.
there, they
They go through the
collecting a
motions.
paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they leave. So
Got you. That's
that's
super
part of that.
interesting. So you get your real estate license. Do you go in and do real estate, or you just become like a super connector
Oh,
because of?
a super connector. I refer people. I did some apartment leasing, but at the end of the day, like it just got me in the door with people to have conversations mostly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like on my YouTube channel, I'd bring on real estate agents from Dallas, and he ended up getting like 15 home sales out of the deal. And he
Wow.
would send me he was like, is your license active? And I would let it slip for like 2 months. And he was like, oh, well, I ain't got to give you 20%. I only got to give you a referral. I was like,
Fee.
oh,
Oh no.
no. So just a lot of little lessons in between there.
Got you. So what do you do after the painting company? Because you did that for 2 years. You enjoyed yourself. You enjoyed the money.
Mm-hmm.
You're building a YouTube channel while doing this. Now what do you do with the painting company? You keep it going? Do you
So
sell?
my friend, he wanted to focus on fencing because you could do fences faster, cheaper. You don't have to go inside people's homes. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about people's pets, all that kind of stuff. And so I sold my share in it, and I just started kind of knowing it was time to do something new. What's the new thing? And it ended up being the semi trucks. So
Okay.
it ended up being me meeting a new group of friends and entrepreneurs. So I was at this point in life where I'm making all this money. I'm hanging out with new people. I'm going to conferences, and I had been promoting this course, right? I was
Yeah.
an affiliate, and I'm like, yeah, get this course. It's amazing. And people are buying, thousands of people buying, right? So I go to an event. It's a pop up by Max Maxwell in
Oh, the
Houston,
real estate
Texas.
wholesaler.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I go because it's the meeting people that makes it for me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
an extrovert, but also just in business, it's what makes it. So I go out there, and people are like, yo, Ericka. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And this guy comes up, he says, hey, I bought that Hood Estates course. And the very next day I got up, got a $40,000 loan from Navy Federal, went and got a truck and got a driver and got it put with a company in a week and a half. And so I'm
Wow.
sitting here the whole time. I've been promoting this thing for 4 months, haven't even looked at it yet. And I'm like, well, dang, do I feel shame or what? Right.
So
So
you're
then
so you're doing a Hood Estates. You're affiliate for Hood Estates. I know those guys.
mm-hmm,
I know those guys follow their stuff. So you're
mm-hmm.
doing it, but you didn't pay attention to the course. You're just selling a course, not knowing what it is
Because I
about.
know it's good, because I know I know a combination of its quality and something was pushing me towards that market.
Yeah.
So I knew, right?
Okay.
So I knew it was quality, right? I wasn't going to sell something crap. And so then I finally watch it. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally can do this. So I reach out to the audience on YouTube and I go, hey, you guys, I'm going to go buy 2 trucks. This is what I'm going to do. What's up? I ended up raising like $120,000 in like 7.5 days, 7 to 10 days.
From your YouTube followers?
Yeah, like people who want to partnership and buy a truck together.
Wow.
And so immediately I was like, okay, I'm on to something. If I can make these 2 work, then great. I'm gonna keep on going. And eventually we went from 2 trucks to like 10. And in that whole process, not even just trucks, started doing real estate, started getting partnerships and different stuff. And every time I tell people are the most important factor, relationships are the most important factor, I know people who hate hearing that, or they're introverts and they don't want to hear that. And I'm like, that's where the
Yeah,
power is.
that's where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people. There's this guy named Mark Salazar. He has a quote that I can never get out of my head. He says, "Your next opportunity is connected to another person,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's just 100% true. Every opportunity in life is going to come from a person, not from like a thing. We use all these social media things to connect, but it's usually through a person.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So
And honestly, like people put your foot through the door.
yeah,
People give me government contracts, all kind of stuff where I'm like, what? And
yeah.
it's just people putting your foot through the door.
Got you. So you go through this course, you learn the trucking business, right? You get a truck, you learn the trucking
Mm-hmm.
business, get drivers, kind of the whole thing. How do you figure that business out? Was it just from the course, or you just went in this cold turkey trying it?
Some of it was from the course, and some of it is the fact that one of my uncles had a trucking company for 20 years.
Okay.
It just wasn't until my cousin had died that he like closed it up because it was Chavis and Sons, and
Yeah.
he unfortunately didn't have any sons, and so he just felt a certain type of way about it, and he wanted to let it go. And so I knew a little bit from him. I know a little bit from here, but what really kept pushing me to dig deeper is every inch of the step I would go into trucking, whether I was at a dealership, whether I was on the phone with freight brokers or shippers, it was always other people in this market other than Americans.
Yeah.
And I'm big on immigrant belief and immigrant power.
Yeah.
Why? Because as a military kid, I'm sitting here going to class with people who are half Korean, mom's Korean, dad's black, whatever, or Korean mom, white American dad, and their moms would have flea markets on the weekends. They'd always tinkering on like side businesses
Yeah.
and getting that money. And you'd be like, oh, what is this? What's the flea market job? Right. So you go, when I'm in first year of college, these kids were all getting $100,000 credit cards from American Express. And I'm like, what's going on? And it was because their moms were putting them on as authorized users.
Yeah.
And so I started to connect the dots that having a business is powerful. Ownership is powerful. That's where the money is at. And even now, when it came to trucking, all I could see every time I get on the phone with somebody, they'd be like, oh, you're American? That's cool. Like they're in America, but shocked to hear from another American in trucking in the position of ownership.
Yeah. I definitely understand that because I'm Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica. I came here when I was 7, and immigrants, they definitely follow the money. So like in the medical field, you go into the hospitals, there's a lot of immigrants there. There's Filipinos, there's Caribbeans, there's Africans. Then you usually are shocked when there's another American like nurse. You're like, American went to nursing school? It's like kind of weird. So I definitely understand what you mean.
Listen, what's funny about you talking about then I had to go to the hospital and I was feeling bad. I had all African nurses from different countries, right? Yeah. Then I had 2 African doctors. One was going to do one thing, one was going to do the other. They got in an argument in the hallway and was like, and then one started speaking a different language and walked off, right? And I was like, what's happening? And then this one little white lady comes in. She's like, I'm just from Ohio, honey. I just moved here to the town. It's like, oh, everybody's African here. And I just thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, and therein is your, unfortunately, in Americans, we're like, we want the best life ever. We don't want any of the struggle. We don't want any of the like study, the struggle, the compromise.
But it never comes to them.
Never comes.
It never comes.
And that's the part that just like, that's part of why I'm even now, like I'm getting ready to take a massive vacation at the end of the year and take off YouTube and all that stuff. And it's been 5 years of like every step of the way, I've like put my foot in and worked hard. And it's always some immigrant person who's like, hey, I see you. Like, hey, let's work, let's do business together. Every step of the way. And it's crazy, right? So like even now in Dallas, there's 4 African guys from the Congo. I think they are. And they have 300 trucks. And in their interview, like with no shame, they go, yeah, in America, they have this thing called equal opportunity. We have to like hire other people. Like they were so bold with it too. And so then the camera pans and shows like the one Hispanic guy, the one white lady working. And I'm like, okay.
No, but there's a definite thing that you realize. It's like, when I go back to Jamaica, like you go to the supermarket, you spend $40,000, and that means you leave with like bread and rice and like not really that much. You get like a basic amount of food for that much. And when you come here, $1 is actually $1, and you can go to the dollar store and use it for something. So then you start realizing very quickly, you're like, oh, if I just work harder than everybody else, I can get more than everybody else. And it's very, very quick to move past a lot of people here because everyone else doesn't want to do the work. And the work is where all the riches are.
Oh my God. Like, like I used to say, all roads lead through real estate.
Yeah.
And if you just look at this country's history, people who own real estate and could protect it, that's the key word, do the work together, are really the powerhouses here. When you have, and now you have all these young people who could go buy a house tomorrow, could buy land anywhere tomorrow. You start talking about, they're like, well, what's that going to do for me? What's that going to put in my pocket? I'm like, this is this country. Oh my God. Like, you know,
It's tax deductions. That's what it could get
so
you.
many things, right?
Yeah.
And that just always blows my mind, you know,
Yeah.
it blows my mind. So,
Got you. So every time we're talking about all the businesses, and it seems like you have the hustler spirit, the hustler like mentality,
mhm,
you keep leading and keep saying YouTube, YouTube, YouTube. You're
mhm,
doing painting, YouTube. You talk about real estate, YouTube.
mhm.
You're trucking, you're talking about YouTube. So one of the biggest reasons why I want to have you on is talking about like creating a YouTube platform. So what made you start with YouTube and want to start on YouTube? Like what was the reasoning behind that?
I felt like I kept repeating my story to friends and family, and
Uh-huh.
I'd be like, "Yeah, this totally is a, you know." I tell a story, they'd be like, "No way," or I tell a story about my family and businesses they own, and people would be like, "What?" And so I started just putting it on YouTube, and I also started being like, "You can do anything in this country. Like, you can go from struggling delivering pizzas to millions, like
Yeah.
in a 5 year span." And even now when I talk about it like this, people go, "Well, that's you. You work hard." And I'm like, no, no, it's America. You
Yeah.
can do anything
Everybody.
here,
Yeah.
just about anything. It depends on what you want to do. And YouTube became this thing for me to communicate with people that were like minded
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the world. Like I have
Gotcha.
British followers. I got people who buy stuff from Britain. In my chat, I got people who buy stuff. I have Filipino VAs. You know, anywhere in the world you can connect with people.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to feel limited to your neighborhood, your street, your whoever.
Got you. So what was the thing that made you get started? Was it the painting content you were making or was it something else? Or what were you
Before
making?
that, when I first started coming to Texas, I was like documenting the journey.
Uh-huh.
But also, I remember talking with, it was 5 friends of us. And 2 of the friends were like psychiatrists, what you would call psychiatrists. One was a singer, and one was like a stay-at-home mom. And we all talked about, we're going to start YouTube channels. They're going to do a stay-at-home mom channel. They're going to do like a psychiatry channel. This other guy's going to do a music channel. We're going to all do it. Yeah, it's going to be super great. I'm the only one who did it.
Wow.
And then like we all kind of like, because I moved to Texas, we kind of all went our separate ways. When I started talking to them again, like, hey, they're like, hey, how's everything going? You still doing that little YouTube channel? I'm like, yeah, I made $1 million, yo. And they're like,
Oh,
what?
damn.
And it was like, oh man, I should have started. It might be too late. I'm like, you know, I don't even try to encourage people to do it because you have to mentally decide
Yeah.
when you say you're going to do something to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are out here doing this, and studies show when you talk about it, you feel better. You're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
that's it. You don't do
Yeah.
anything else with it. And so for me, I made it a mission of mine. Like I would do a video and I'd immediately go do work. I'd do this and I'd immediately go do work. I would not have this moment of like saying I was going to do something and never did it.
Yeah. Got so you started just documenting your journeys, just putting your stuff out. When do you like use it to like leverage business at that point?
I just started reaching out to the community and being like, hey, what do you guys think here? Right. Or, hey, what do you want to do here? Right. So I would just reach out and be like, would anybody like to partner with me at this? Would anybody like to work with me here? Would anybody like to do this? And it was just actually like just that reach out where people would be like, yes, me. Like even now where people would send emails to me and be like, hey, I want to do A, B, and C. And I'd be like, oh, super busy, you know, can't do it. Now I still try to respond and put them in kind of a category of like reach back out in a few months.
Yeah.
Because all money ain't good money, right?
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have the temperament to do such things, right? So always be careful about that.
Got you. All right. So, and then, you know, your YouTube is not like you have like 700 million people following you. You have a very like, you have a sub 50 like YouTube, like you have like 38,000 for followers, subscribers. So, but you're able to raise $1.9 million from that group of people. So
for me, less than that, like a small batch, like there's like 75 people in my investment club.
Really? So I can hear my audience asking, but she seems like she has that attitude. She has that personality. Like, you know, she's good in front of a camera. And how did you, like, besides just documenting your journey, what were you going in there and talking about? Like, what did you choose to talk about? How did you create the content? Like if you could give them like a step-by-step on exactly what you did in the beginning.
Long story short, I did motivational stuff.
Okay.
I would like review the news. I would do motivational stuff. Mostly like I would like if I felt down or I was like read a book, I'd review it.
Okay.
I review books. I started that way, and honestly, like it was like the ramping up of like, hey, I read this book, I'm going to do this thing. Hey, I got my real estate license, I'm going to do this thing. You know, like I started kind of laying the groundwork for it. Does that make sense?
Can you go a little bit deeper on that, a little bit more?
Like literally, so at my mom's house, there's like 500 books I left there.
Okay.
At my current house, there's probably 600 books.
Okay.
All I would do is I'd be reading books, and people would be like, well, what are you reading? And I'd be like, well, here, this is what I'm reading. This is what I'm doing. And I would just start sharing it. And that's where a lot of that came from.
Got you.
Just sharing it step by step.
So whatever you were going through in that moment, you just jumped on YouTube and just started talking about it. So if it was a book review, it was a book review. If you were going to Dallas, going to Austin, you recorded that. If you got into real estate, you told the audience, I'm into real estate now, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, cool. Because a lot of people feel like they should be like this niche, choose like one specific thing to talk about. If you're talking about shoes, about shoes.
Again, I teach a YouTube course now. I'm a brand at this point, so I can talk about various things. If you're just starting out, niche it down.
Okay.
People are simple. They're like one-dimensional things, one-dimensional conversations. They have a hard time going, okay, you do this, like what? Like they have a hard time with that. So the way to kind of, the fastest channels grow that are kind of riches and niches, right? Like, hey, this is this. Right, the brand, like Ty Lopez always makes a joke. There can't be 33,000 brands in the world, right? You can't, right?
Yeah.
There can be some major brands, and then the rest of y'all quit it, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in you have a space for some brands, and then you have a space for niche activity.
Yeah.
What is niche activity? Hey, this is how I blog, boom, right? Or a niche activity like I'm just going to talk about tax liens, right? Or a niche activity is I'm just going to talk about being a stay-at-home mom and the challenges of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Niches. I'm just going to show you cooking videos. I'm going to cook on this channel. Niche because people feel comfort in being able to categorize.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. And the niches are in the riches. Like if you become very good at that specific niche, I always tell people you go in the bread aisle, there's like 300 different breads, but there are also these one breads that are like, I'm organic, and they're very specific for a very specific group of people. And they'll make, that would be like a $200 million company just feeding that specific audience. And that specific audience knows that bread is for them. And they do it very deliberately. They're not excluding everybody, but they're talking to their own audience. And that's very specific.
There's a dude called Dave's Bread or something like that, and he has like a white guy with like a muscle line on the front of the bread, and it's when the gluten phrase hit, like the gluten craze, like, oh, I'm celiac, I can't eat gluten.
Yeah,
he was #1 standout because not only did he hire guys fresh out of prison, he was out of prison and he made this food because his stomach was always upset at prison because of the food, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this cyclical thing, this unique story, and now this bread is like, he makes millions.
Yeah, he actually sold that company for $300 and something million. So
yeah,
I know exactly the story.
No more bread for him.
No, he has a different type of bread.
So he's out.
He's out. So,
but that's just, think about that unique of a story where he niched it, like to make people's stomachs feel better, to give people who have had a rough life a second chance.
Yeah. And he stayed in that space for a very long time before that gluten craze hit. And once it hit, it kind of hit the pressure where it got outside of just that niche and it went to mainstream. But he started there and he was still making a pretty good business just being in the niches for a very long time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So YouTube, it seems like it's the funnel for you. It's the top of your funnel, and then everything pours through YouTube down. So, there's a lot of people that's on this that listen to the show, and they have very little money to start. Do you recommend starting with YouTube, taking your cell phone out and talk about whatever you're going through and go from there? Because a lot of people want to start businesses, but the first thing, the barrier to entry, they always say is, I don't have any money to start that business. What would you say to that person to get started? Because it seemed like you always got started, but you didn't always have all the resources together.
So two things. You can start a business very cheaply. The 3 things people really need is leads, a way to reach people, and what are you selling, right? Anytime I hear somebody who's like, I just want to be on YouTube to talk, and I'm like, so you want people to just listen to you talk about what?
Nothing.
Like, it's very narcissistic. It's like, I just want to be a talking head or something. And I'm like, that's weirdo stuff. And I clarify, like I'm brash on here and everybody can, leave me ugly emails, but I'm like, nobody wants to just hear you talk about nothing. Like that's weird. But again, where do you get your leads from? What platform are they going to purchase from you? And like, what are they getting? Right. So just very simple. So YouTube, you have to think about it in this context. 90% of all videos on YouTube get less than 1,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
So when my friends were like, oh, you only have 3,000 or 4,000 videos, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the top 10% of YouTube. Do you know, like immediately you got to flip that on somebody hey, I'm in the top 10% of YouTube. Yeah, I got 3,000 views.
Yeah.
But also you have to go think about the long tail. The long tail talks about those diehard 1,000 fans. And if you just have 1,000 fans, prime example is the guy that made that song with Cassie.
Ryan Leslie.
Ryan Leslie. There you go. Diehard 1,000 fans. He has a whole superphone system, everything, where he can niche down those diehard 1,000 to 10,000 fans who he even threw a party. Hey, I'm going to have a party in a castle. It's $1,000 to come.
Yeah.
And I'm only sending it out to my friends. So now you have 100 to 200 people sending him $1,000 to rent a castle for one night. It's going to cost them more to get there, right?
Yeah.
And they get there, they party with him, and then they're like, oh, that was awesome. Right?
That was amazing.
But you don't know that if you don't know there's like that 1,000 true fans, the numbers.
Yeah.
So it can be podcasting, it can be YouTube, it can be anything. But video is easy for people to digest. And I think podcast and video are like this, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had a ton of radio stations in your own little town. You had the radio guy, the sports guy.
Yeah.
And then you have now big radio took over. Well, podcasting, in my mind, is the small radio guy taking back the small radio.
Yeah.
Right? So you have podcasts that have like 20,000 people listening, and it's more than Fox Sports sometimes.
Yeah.
I one time had a live with 400 people on it. My friend called me and said, right now I'm looking at Fox Sports Live, and you have 200 more people than Fox Sports Live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to value people's time and people's attention. When it comes to video, why is video so appealing? It stimulates the eyes. People are kind of anti-TV right now. It's visually a great thing. They can plug in, listen, replay it again.
Also, same with video too, you don't have to, like podcasts, you don't have to watch it. Like there's a lot of people who have Joe Rogan, they watch Joe Rogan podcast on YouTube, but they don't actually watch it. They're listening to it. Yeah, they're truck drivers that are listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, but it's on video. And maybe if they come to a stop, they can look at it. But for the most part, a lot of people are just listening to the videos,
Yep.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of that too.
And so that's your funnel, right? That's your platform. This podcast or this YouTube, that's your pack. So people come to that funnel. What are you delivering to them? And then where can they like exchange money for goods, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been Thinkific or Stripe or PayPal. Hey, Ericka, I want to talk to you. Well, here's a Calendly link. Book a time, that kind of thing. Or, hey, Ericka, you invested in tax liens. How do I do that? Well, I recorded a tutorial on my screen. I show you step by step how to do it. Here's my course. You can buy it from here.
Yeah.
So it basically is having a platform, a place to speak, and video is going to be very much the future. And I want people to understand that YouTube has like a algorithm, a computer that, this, omniscient computer that tells people where to go. And even though it had this computer that it told to not focus on guns, not focus on that, not focus on religion, not focus on this stuff. Like this stuff is demonetized. No. People organically went out and searched. And now even 10 years after YouTube's been fighting, guns, religious families, happy families, Christian families, toys, and kids are still the top six.
Yeah. They're still the biggest things
to this day.
Yeah.
To this day.
Because we can't stop.
You can't stop. Skynet can't stop me.
No,
I will survive Skynet. Okay?
Definitely a sci-fi fan if you keep referring to as Skynet.
Listen, I've talked about Skynet so much. Like if something goes wrong with the channel or my live would go down, I'm like, Skynet doesn't want us to win today, right? So literally people have started saying Skynet on other people's channel. And this guy was like, what are y'all talking about? And they're like, Ericka Williams said Skynet. And it was just crazy.
Yeah, but that's the thing that separates you, because the people who subscribe to you, they want to hear those things that separate you from everybody else, and that's the thing that, those little things like that. You should start making shirts like Skynet did it. Skynet doesn't want me to win.
I know Skynet, the killer.
So now, just all right. So let's go through this exercise, because again, I can hear my audience asking me. Let's say someone, and I always tell people, service businesses are the best ways to start. Right? A service business are easy, very low overhead to kind of get into. You're just trading time for money. Let's say somebody has let's just use one of your references, a painting company, or they want to start a painting company, and they also want to use YouTube to build this. How would you recommend them go about that? Build this painting company while using YouTube?
Well, I mean, so even if you're like a realtor or whoever, I'd start titling the video, let's say they live in Asheboro town. I don't know. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
No problem.
I was trying to kill some noise from the background. Let's say they live in Asheboro town. Well, every video I put Asheboro painting, Asheboro this, Asheboro services, Asheboro, something that has the location in the city they're in, and dominate that in their SEO and their chat and everything. Because at the end of the day, they literally could have a one-page website. If they pay for Google Ads to go there, it's the same difference.
Yeah.
Right. One's free, or one's you can pay like $300 a month to make sure your ads go there.
Gotcha.
So it's like there's ways to build businesses. There's no business that you're going to do 100% free. If you can't spend $300 a month on a business, I'm gonna tell you to go deliver for Uber or something to get your $300. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's how you recommend start off by whatever service you're doing in that town and niche down and kind of go from there. And then in the sense of creating the content, just kind of make whatever you feel is necessary, or how you say.
I would say reverse engineer and add your splash onto it, right? So if you go and Google right now painting companies, right? You go painting companies, right? You go look them up. You see what's popular, what's interesting, or unique painting jobs, and then you put your spin on it, right? What's your spin? Asheboro's unique painting job, Asheboro's animal, something weird, right? Something eye-catching, something people can watch, because you'd be amazed. People watch DIY all the time, do-it-yourself channels. They watch home building channels. Like I watched the other day for 20 minutes. This couple build a whole house, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just sitting there like, oh.
Yeah, I watched this couple on YouTube that they built their own A-frame house in like West Virginia.
Yes, West Virginia. It's on like 73 acres.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And she's like super fit, helping him. But what blew my mind is the fact that he drove 2 hours a day for work. And I was like, how is this man still awake?
Yeah,
like,
and then
doing anything.
And then like still like coming home and like making this house, and they still are doing this. And they have a pretty popular YouTube channel now, but it took a very long time to get there. And they were living in like a trailer or something crazy by the time they put this.
It's an RV kind of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
Well,
so
they're trending right now. Like I literally went on. I like to go on incognito, or I go onto a different laptop and I go on YouTube, and it'll show me what's YouTube suggesting to me.
Yeah.
So this family on the wild was suggested to me. So of course I watched it and I was like, but that's all it takes, right? I had 1 or 2 videos on my YouTube channel be like on first page suggested. And to this day, they get the most comments, the most traffic, the most angry messages. And it cracks me up because it's like, okay, cool. Thanks. You're adding to the AdSense. I don't care.
And then also it's a revenue stream within itself, right? You get to a point where YouTube can become a revenue stream for you, and then you can use it to create other businesses. So it's almost like creating its own top line revenue generator for your business, but then also it becomes its own business within itself. And so it just becomes like another stream of what you're doing. So do you believe everyone should be building like a media first business, or like a video first business, or a podcast first, or whatever it is first business? Like I do real estate, but I also have this media thing first. I do this, but I also have this.
I don't think, like, even though I love media and media's provided me an opportunity, I realize there's a lot of people who hate being in front of camera. Hate doing that stuff, right? And there's some people who have beautiful radio voices who could do podcasts all day and night. My hope for a lot of people who are watching this, if they feel that need to start it, like, right? And what happens is people start stuff like, but the execution is exhausting, right? Like, some days I was like, oh man, I really don't feel like doing a YouTube video. And I do it, and the energy from the audience, I'd be like, yeah, and it's created this 5-year arch,
Yeah.
right? Where people have trust factor with me. Cause like, even if you don't see me here online, where am I going? Right? Like, like the reason so many people were able to donate money to me or invest in partnerships with me, because they're like, I see you every day. You at your office, you're working. There's the trucks. There's your stuff. It's very transparent every day. And it creates a trust factor. That's all. You can't beat the trust factor of video.
Yeah.
When people can see your face in your everyday life, it's like, oh, it's this, they have this term for it, like a parasitical or whatever relationship, where they feel like they know you.
Yeah.
Even though you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
you do videos every day.
I used to, not as much anymore. Like, there was a time period where I felt like YouTube was killing my channel. So I just started going live, and I was like, all right, I'll just communicate straight to the people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that. YouTube, like, you know what I mean? Like,
the people want
work.
me.
And eventually people want it. And so, and then when I survived that hump, what I realized is like, oh, I'm selling anywhere from $100 to $400 every day. I don't have to go live every day. I don't have to do a video every day. Even more so, there's a young lady I know. She went and got pregnant and married, not just, just pregnant, but she got married like on the quick and got pregnant and disappeared. It was like she wasn't on YouTube. People were like, oh my God, what happened? Then she just came back a year later with a baby, like, hey, y'all, just took a life vacation, because YouTube is so, there's a tendency to make creators go more. And you can determine like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, and stop.
I'm good. Stop. And there's nowhere else I've seen that happen where you can go, stop, like YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're doing podcasts and you stop doing podcasts, people get mad about that, right? If you're on Instagram every day, all of a sudden, then now you're not on Instagram, people fall off. YouTube's one of those things where I can get on here or not be on here and still have sales every day. Like people go watch a video from 5 years ago
and make a purchase.
Boom.
Yeah,
make a purchase.
Yeah, because video, and also too, and me being a podcaster and being on the side of where it's just audio.
Spitting it, did you?
Audio has a way of like people have to come to it, and it's not as natural as like, oh, jump on YouTube. It's like, oh, where do I listen to this podcast again? How do I listen to podcasting? It's still an education that comes with it, but everyone understands YouTube. And also everyone understands the cycle of like TV. Like Friends go away for 10 years, but they're like, hey, we're rebooting Friends again. All the same Friends fans, because they watched it for that much years, they jump right back. And I think because people are trained from TV, that you can take a break on YouTube and still come back. And as long as at some point you come back, they understand.
Yeah, I think creators are starting to understand, because there's a lot of people who straight up burn out.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, people giving off this image of like, oh, I do all these videos and editing myself. And no, you don't. There's a ton of people I can snitch on where they've got like 8 people on a team, helping them put something together. And you're sitting there crying at house like, I can't edit my video in 20 minutes. Don't beat yourself up, because they ain't even editing a minute in the video in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and then there's also services that you could use for that now that you don't even have to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, but it's also it's not just a goof off thing. It's actual business.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, if you treat it like a business, you'll be paid like a business.
Yeah.
When you see these people out here like, I got 1 million followers and I'm broke, and I'm like, well, what do you do all day? Like, is this built like a business? Does this serve people?
Yeah.
Or is this something for people to goof off on?
Yeah. That's like those practical joker webs, Instagram or YouTube's. They really don't pan out to anything, but they can get a lot from AdSense, but that's about it.
And they basically outgrow their audience eventually.
Yeah, because at some point
with that first wave.
Yeah. Because at one point you're like, I can't keep just telling jokes or doing this stupid stuff on the street or running myself into a wall. So you said something very earlier, and I want to pinpoint. You say you raised $1.9 million off of YouTube using YouTube. So how did you go about doing that?
Well, there's a whole relationship building factor there where I spoke with people on the phone. I met them in person. We ain't letting SEC come get me. I basically had a lot of relationship development with people to have that trust factor. So I went all over the United States last year. I did events and conferences and met people in person and did all kinds of work. And then I built that bridge to like, hey, this is who I am. I'm not going anywhere, blah, 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 blah. Right.
Gotcha.
So that is part of how I built that all up.
Got you. Cool. That's awesome. And So a couple questions before we go.
Mhm.
One, what was the best business advice you ever received?
I think I'm still going to say it's from a book. It's E-Myth Revisited, that
Okay.
most people are beautiful technicians. They're not
Yeah.
really business owners.
Yeah.
And so, knowing where you stand in that, right? Where I maybe not be the best technician, right? But definitely a business owner.
Yeah.
I'm buying a business now. So,
Solid book, by the way. That's such a great book. Worst business advice you ever received?
follow your passion. I mean, I think the passion movement took a lot of people out because you could be a passionate surfboarder, but you may never make enough money to live in Hawaii full time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
some things are just that passions and you enjoy them. You make some money off of them, but everybody's not going to be a millionaire passion follower.
Yeah. And that passion thing can get you into because sometimes you actually have a skill that you can actually monetize and
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of money from, and but you'll put that aside to go chase a passion, and the
A
passion
passion.
that passion
Be
might not
like,
work
bro,
out.
you're an accountant. Be an accountant.
Yeah, it'd be a really good
Passionately
one.
draw on their weekends.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
That's all.
Got you. What was one book that you'd say that was one or two books that were like a changer for you? Something that like you read it and it changed your business, it changed how you moved in life. Like what you would say two books that gave you that?
I would say Cash Flow Quadrant. I know everybody's on cancel Robert Kiyosaki right now, but Cash Flow Quadrant, because it broke up the category of like employee,
Yeah,
self-employed business owner, investor.
yeah,
And also it had this really great thing inside the book of like your family can only give you advice from the point of where they know their knowledge point. Like my family was all security based.
mm-hmm.
And even though they had some entrepreneurial tendencies, like most people do, that security base is what was holding them to that position so tight. But that's all they can do. Like even my friends here who are engineers, they're like, "Oh man, you can come work at this tech company," but that's all advice they can give you. They can't give you advice on how to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out here trying to convince your friends and family to do something or say something, and like they can never give you validation or approval for your business ideal because that's not the framework they work out of.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. You have another book, or that's the biggest one?
I would honestly say the 4 Hour Work Week. The
Really?
4 Hour Work Week, because people keep acting like I would talk to these young people. They're like, "What? What book?" I'm like, "This was the book before all these other little hipsters went overseas and hanged out and went to Vietnam and got on the internet." Okay, because at the end of the day, you can have a store that's selling something and be done. Like there was a guy, I remember him. It was like, God, what is his name? He's Asian in Nevada, and he followed the book for to a T back in the day when it first came out, and he was documenting it on a blog, right?
Yeah.
So, before YouTube, and it worked. Like he had this warehouse distributing his stuff. He made all this money. He bought a house with a pool.
Yeah.
He had a VA, and he was just like, "Oh, now what do I do?" Right? And he's like, "I'm just gonna go live life. I'm done doing this blog." Like that was literally his last blog. Was like, "Hey, done doing this blog. Gonna go live life. Peace out." And
this thing worked.
I kind of aspire to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally aspire to like one day be like, "Hey, you guys, I just got married, got my kiddo, live out. Peace out."
I did it.
Live out. Live out. Like yeah, I got my money. I'm good. Peace out.
Gotcha. That was a good book. I think it's interesting and it's a great title. The systems to build all those things, though, takes so much. The time he wasn't really specific on the heavy lifting up front to have the 4-hour work week on the back end.
Well, I think in the beginning book he did tell you he worked 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And he started delegating it, getting lower and lower, and so by the time you see him, he had perfected like these systems, right? Yeah. Now, the most simplest thing I would refer to is like the Shopify effect.
Yeah.
You have a Shopify site, but the site isn't going to make you money.
Yeah.
It's the ads you send to the site.
That's going to
the marketing component, right? And that's running a business like a business, not just I'm a frat boy business guy. What's up? I'm in Vietnam, living for $200 a month. Yeah.
Ty Lopez life.
Those guys have come home. Man, there's like 100 kids I followed. Because we follow natural cycles of adulthood. Yeah. Where we want to nest, we want to settle, even though men think, "Oh no, I'm a single man forever." No, like most of these guys that I follow, they've come back to America.
Yeah.
Like they're in travel groups saying, no, I bought a house like 2 years ago. I've been here. I just
Yeah.
put up, I have so much, they have so much content. They still have YouTube videos and Instagram stuff going up. Like you think they in the Philippines right now. No,
They back
I'm not
home.
even
They in the States.
joking. They back home. Even the van life people. I'm in groups for van life people who have made so much content and now they can edit it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wow, no, they in little Ohio somewhere. They in little Iowa
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
on a little farm, like
They have a
like
homestead
no.
now and they're doing homestead content.
Yeah. Well, that'll be their next thing after they tell people they got out of the van.
Yeah,
So
that van life, that shit is such a scam, bro. Like, there's a lot of people like they're doing
well,
that van,
it's
and it is
they
no
broke.
way van life is fun. No way that is fun. They make it look fun, but
It's cold outside.
I'm like,
Mm-mm.
how do you sleep? Like, you ever tried to? I remember driving across country with my brother, and we stopped in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
and we slept inside of the car. And it was the most
Mm-hmm.
miserable sleep of my entire life. And I'm like, there's no way this could be fun. It was so cold. You're so paranoid. You're like, what's going on? You hear a sound, you want to wake up. There's no way van life could be amazing. So I
So
watched the
there's a
YouTube.
thing called overlanding. If you look on YouTube, there's a lot of that too, where they have the Tacomas and the Tundras, and they make it like a bed in the back. And at the end of the day, you're still sleeping outside in your vehicle. Like I'm not knocking. Like, and it's financial based,
Yeah,
and that's part of why I'm such a big proponent of like trying to get people to understand. Try to get them to understand. Like, yeah, like you need money.
yeah, you definitely do.
You need money.
All right. And so I'd like to ask this like just two more questions, then we can cut from
Mm-hmm.
there. There's somebody right now. They're sitting at their job, or they're COVID-19's over. I had a lot of the audience. They were so happy that they were getting $1,000 a week to be on furlough, and now they have to go back to work. They're miserable at that job. They want to start something, or they have something that they're playing with, but they want to kind of like do fully. What advice would you give that person? What advice would you give that person who's sitting on the sidelines, dying a slow death at that job, to go in and start their own thing?
We're natural builders just in our nature. We naturally want to build things and tinker and grow. And hold on, sorry. We're natural builders, we're natural tinkerers, we're natural wanting to develop something that we own,
Yeah.
that we say is our own, even, children, anything, right? So we naturally gravitate towards that. So with that being our natural state, even if they build something and it doesn't make $1 million, let's just say it makes an extra 20K a year.
Yeah.
That's worth it, right? If the average person in America is making 40K a year, really the average person is making $30,000. They've already showed that study after study. So an extra 20K gets you at 50K a year. Now you have a little bit of purpose, a little bit of flexibility. You feel a little bit better about yourself at night, right? They're gonna wear me out. Feel a little bit better about yourself at night. I think you should do it. You don't know where the road leads. And see, what really bothers me is people who sit on the sidelines and observe and like, well, I would do this or I would do that. Well, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You just watch it. You haven't done anything. You haven't grown anything. You haven't developed anything. And so when you start trying to talk to people about that, that's the biggest part. Is even if you watch and say, Ericka, I don't know if that's for me or this is for me. Find something that is for you or something you can work on locally.
Yeah.
Because I always say accountant, because I think I have this whole theory about accountants are going to make a bunch of money the next couple of years, just tracking all this government money going out the window. But let's just say you're an accountant and you're like, I want to help business owners have better books. Or I'm just coming up with the idea. I want to be the QuickBooks specialist.
Yeah.
Right? Where I come, deal with you for a couple hours in the afternoon, you pay me this money, I get your books right, and now you can apply for loans and business stuff and be straight. People would pay for that.
Yeah.
Because people don't like putting it. Now, you put a fancy name on it and make it popular via YouTube or podcast, more people are going to buy your services, right?
Yeah.
If you just say, hey, I'm bookkeeping for you and I'm getting you tied up to QuickBooks, that ain't exciting. Nothing about that sounds sexy, right? So, nothing. But if you say, hey, are you tired of missing out on loans and business opportunities? Let me put you together in this quick 3-hour connection session called Get Your Money Right. Right? Whatever, like this crazy name. people are like, I need to get my money right. Yes. I will pay him $400 to go over here and literally log me in the QuickBooks and tie it to my business credit card. I mean, just the dumbest things, right? But it would make money because people hate paperwork. They hate doing that side of the business. And 60% of African American business owners didn't even apply for the PPP. Yeah. And my thoughts are because people didn't have their paperwork together.
Yeah.
I'm hearing every accountant I bump into or I'm in 2 Facebook groups. They're like, people coming to their office rushing with all this terrible paperwork, like, hey, put this together so I can get this PPP. And they're like, dude, no.
Yeah.
Like, you need so much more work.
Yeah. Like you have the basics wasn't even done yet.
Yeah. You're not even put together.
Gotcha. That's such great, solid advice. And do you think a lot of your success has been by luck or by straight up hustle?
Man, I don't believe in luck, because if you blame it all on luck, then it's, I was unlucky in love. I was unlucky in this. No, you're unlucky in love because you wear weird clothes and you smell bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, I was just lucky enough to get into the NFL. No, dude, you actually got up every day and night. Like, they just showed this Asian kid who is for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
He did 10,000 calorie burn in one day.
Yeah.
And because people, you know, all these challenges on YouTube, he's like, you guys are lying. Let me show you what I did. And he's like riding the bike for 150 miles. He's swimming. He's running it and hiking up a hill. He's doing all these things. And so I don't want to sit here and say, well, it's lucky. Luck show is lucky. No, that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
That's just because that's saying, well, I'm not where you are because I'm unlucky.
Yeah. That's an easy cop out. Yeah.
It's easy. Right. Well, if I had the wife you had, I'd be lucky too. Right. You know what I mean? Like that's terrible. That's a way to make you not only make kids angry, make adults angry. Because if I'd have been lucky in life, I'd have been this. No, go work for it. Go put 5 years in and call me back about it.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things I tell everybody is consistency and frequency, what you're saying and how often you're saying it, and you just got to stay on it. And eventually the audience will find you or you will find them. But like, you just have to stay consistent and be in front of them.
And throw some ad money on it.
Yeah.
People want to free 99 you to death. You're like, baby, you can spend $100 a month and build consistency over the next 5 years.
Yeah. And
small amounts.
And even if you just dedicate, like, let's say you can't even spend the 500, like you can't spend 100, spend the 50 and spend the 50 consistently, and then get yourself to 100, then the 200. Like that ad, it's not all organic. Like all these guys didn't get where they are because they're just organic. Like they're paying for some of this, you know? So
they're paying for some of it and they're partnering with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend's channel over here. I mean, trust.
Yeah, they all jump on each other's wave and promote each other's stuff. So it's huge. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to follow you on YouTube, take one of your courses, they just want to get in contact with you, where would you recommend them go?
Hop on YouTube, Ericka's Classy Climb. Type it right on the search. I'm like the #1 Ericka on YouTube. Well, I'm #2. There's this other girl who's like a fitness chick. But I'm like the #2 Ericka on YouTube, Ericka's Classy Climb. Got 1,800 videos. You can't miss me. Also on Instagram, Ericka's Classy Climb, and on Twitter, Ericka Williams. I just on there sometimes just throwing craziness up on the wall.
Cool. I will also throw all the links to everything she just said in the description, so you guys reach out there. And again, watch her YouTube channel. She does drop a lot of cool content on there, and shoots it straight from the hip too. That's what I like about your content. It's like very much like, let me tell you something. Right? So if you want that straight talk, definitely go check out our YouTube channel. And Ericka, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you so much for your time.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.